welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there!
So today we're digging into a few different things. Got a news piece, some social media, bits from interviews, even some tracking data.
Yeah, and it all kind of swirls around this buzz, this potential chat between, well, two really big names, Michael Saylor and Joe Rogan.
Specifically about Bitcoin.
Right. Specifically Bitcoin.
So our job here is to sift through this material, pull out the key facts, see how they connect.
Figure out why this possible conversation is getting so much attention right now.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the thing that kicked this all off, according to the sources, it just happened May 31st.
That was Saylor, right? Making a pretty public move.
Yep. He was on X, the platform, and he jumped into a thread from a Joe Rogan fan account. They were asking, who should be on the show next?
Oh, okay. And Saylor just threw his hat in the ring.
Pretty much, yeah. But, really directly. He tagged Rogan right in the reply.
And what'd he say?
It was simple. Just, hey, at Rogan, let's talk about Bitcoin.
Wow. Okay. Straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that go down? The sources mentioned the community reaction, especially the Bitcoin folks.
Oh, yeah. It blew up pretty fast. Lots of excitement. Speculation started flying around immediately.
People saw the potential, I guess.
Totally. You had, the Bitcoin therapist tweeting something like, this interview will shatter the internet.
Shatter the internet. Okay, high hopes there.
Yeah, and then crypto analyst Cook was speculating about Saylor, Bitcoin pilling Joe Rogan.
Right, the idea of converting him, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe the most interesting one was Brandon McDougall, a crypto commentator.
What did he say?
He said, for the first time ever, I'll be watching a Joe Rogan podcast if Saylor is there.
Okay, that tells you something. Getting someone to watch for the first time, that's real anticipation.
Definitely shows how big a deal the community thinks this matchup could be.
All right, so that's the spark and the immediate fallout. Let's talk about the players. Starting with Rogan, what's his background with Bitcoin and crypto, based on what we've got here?
Well, he's actually, he's talked about crypto and Bitcoin a fair bit on his show over the years.
It's not totally new territory for him then.
Not at all. And the sources point out he's often sounded pretty positive about Bitcoin specifically.
Right. I remember hearing he's expressed some personal fascination with it.
Yeah, absolutely. The sources bring up that episode from October 2023, the one with Sam Altman from OpenAI.
Okay.
In that chat, Rogan apparently said Bitcoin fascinates him the most out of all the cryptos.
The most. Interesting.
And he also said it has the most likely possibility of becoming a universal viable currency.
Strong words. Did he say why he thought that?
Yeah, he mentioned two things specifically in that conversation. One was the limited supply, that's limited in the amount that it can be.
The scarcity argument.
Right. And the other thing was he just loved the fact that it's been implemented, that it actually works in the real world.
So he's been thinking about it for a while, and those core features resonate with him.
Seems like it. And it's also worth remembering, like you said, having Bitcoin people on isn't totally new for him either.
Oh, yeah. Who else has been on?
Well, the sources mention Andreas Antonopoulos. He's a well-known Bitcoin entrepreneur.
Right, I know the name.
He was actually on Rogan's show several times, way back between 2014 and 2016.
Wow, that is way back. Bitcoin was tiny then.
Yeah, trading under $1,000. So Rogan's platform has hosted these kinds of deep dives before, even in the early days.
Good context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's switch to Saylor, the guy who made the invitation, co-founder of Strategy. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the key thing about him in this specific Bitcoin context, according to our sources?
Oh, it's got to be Strategy's Bitcoin holdings. It's staggering, really.
How much are we talking?
According to the Saylor tracker data we have here, which lots of people follow, his company holds 580,250 Bitcoin.
580,000 Bitcoin?
Yep.
And the value on that, what does the source say?
Let's see, $60.47 billion.
60 billion? Okay. That's more than just interest.
Right. That's a profound institutional commitment. Sin in the game doesn't even begin to cover it.
Definitely puts his desire to talk Bitcoin in perspective. Did the sources mention any of his recent, market takes?
They did, yeah. From May 9th, he was on the Coin Stories podcast with Natalie Brunell.
Okay.
And he was talking about why Bitcoin wasn't already at, say, $150,000, a number he's talked about before.
And what was his reasoning?
He called it a rotation. Basically, his theory was that short-term holders, people without that long view, they've been selling.
Taking profits or getting out?
Yeah. And he thinks that selling is being absorbed by a sort of new wave of investors coming in, a changing of the guard almost.
Interesting. So he's actively analyzing and commenting on the market dynamics too?
Constantly.
Okay, so let's try and connect these threads. We've got Saylor making this public ask. He's backed by this massive corporate Bitcoin bet, and he's vocal about market moves.
Right. Deep conviction, huge capital.
Then you've got Rogan, huge platform, millions of listeners, and he's on record being fascinated by Bitcoin's core ideas for years.
Yeah, the curiosity and the reach.
And the community obviously sees this potential pairing as, well, potentially explosive.
Yeah.
So pulling it all together from the sources, why is this potential conversation seen as such a big deal?
Well, I think it's the convergence, right? You have Saylor, who isn't just a Bitcoin bull. He's arguably the biggest institutional bull. His company's treasury is Bitcoin, effectively.
He embodies that institutional leap.
Exactly. And he wants to take that very specific, very high-stakes viewpoint onto Rogan's stage.
Which reaches people way beyond the usual crypto or finance circles.
Precisely. Rogan talks to everyone. Millions of people who might never actively seek out info on Bitcoin could tune into a long, maybe multi-hour conversation about it.
And Rogan's style is usually pretty in-depth, letting guests really explore their ideas.
Right. So it's this potential meeting. Saylor's hyper-committed capital and conviction meets Rogan's massive broad audience and his history of genuine curiosity about this specific topic.
That combination does sound potent.
And that's why you get those reactions we mentioned, the shatter the internet or Bitcoin pilling. It's about the perceived power of this specific interaction.
Saylor providing the sort of hardcore substance and commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogan providing the giant megaphone and the platform for a deep dive.
Yeah. It feels like a potential catalyst for shifting mainstream awareness or understanding, bypassing a lot of the usual media filters.
A very modern way for ideas, especially complex financial ones, to spread maybe.
Yeah.
Through these huge direct audience platforms.
Seems to be the implication, yeah.
So bringing this home,
Mm-hmm.
what does this mean for you listening to us talk about this potential talk?
Well, I think watching this situation unfold, even if the interview doesn't happen, it's a really clear example of something important.
Which is?
It's about how individual voices, especially those with big platforms or like Saylor, with massive capital backing their words, can really steer public discussion now.
Right. It's not just institutions or traditional news anymore. It's figures like these having potentially huge influence.
Exactly. You see how someone with Saylor's deep conviction, backed by billions, can try to leverage a platform like Rogan's to speak directly to, well, almost everyone.
Outside the normal echo chambers.
Yeah. It kind of highlights this whole evolving way that information about new tech, new assets gets out there and maybe shapes how people think about it.
So it's maybe less about whether this specific interview happens and more about what it represents.
I think so. It really makes you think about the power these specific combinations of voice, platform, and in Saylor's case, serious financial commitment, have in framing complex topics like digital money.
Yeah, it kind of underscores that difference between just, talking about something versus putting billions behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when those two things collide on a massive stage.
Definitely something to keep an eye on, how these conversations play out.